Well, welcome everybody to the second show of my New Japan save here in 2004, where we're trying to get out of the shadow of Inoki-ism one bit at a time. This is the beginning of the first tour, the Fighting Spirit Tour, and how I'm going to basically do this, just for everybody's, own saving time, is I'm not going to show every single tour show. I'm just going to show any tour show where anything works out. So yes, I'm not going to show you every random tour show where that is a bunch of pointless tag matches. Since I'm not booking this sort of live, there's no point to it, and more importantly, it's kind of boring. I'm not going. It's not going to be just the final show and the first show, but it's going to be just any important shows or any shows that I think you guys deserve to look at. So I think it's probably going to be three shows plus the final show for this, and then going over some things. But I think that's it. But I'll just have to figure that out as we go forward. But anyway, let's get rolling. As we're live from Korakuen Hall, we're at the end of the month. Of course, after New Japan. Back then, in 2004, they didn't have. Well, they had a show in Okinawa, but I'm not going to do that show just because it doesn't really matter. It's basically just a throwaway show. So I'm going to start off in Korakuen for the first show of the Fighting Spirit Tour. So let's get rolling. We start out with our fun little with a match between some young lions as Hiroki Goto defeats Akiwa Anzawa in 7:39 by pinfall to go to heaven. This gets a 21. Anzawa gets a 22. Goto gets a 28. I mean, Goto's still young. He's getting there, but he gets the win here on the pre-show over another young lion. Anzawa is off his game. What can you do? And then in another fun undercard match, we had Tiger Mask and Motaro Inoue teaming up in the junior heavyweight division to defeat young guys Nafumi Yamanopo and Taguchi in 10:28 when Tiger Mask 4 pins Yamamoto. This gets a 48, Tiger Mask 4 gets a 61, Inoue gets a 39, Yamamoto gets a 27, and Taguchi gets a 31. So again, just a quick little match here to get some young lions some in-ring time and put the veteran junior heavyweights over. Solid match here. Tiger Mask 4 looks good, so there you go. Nothing too exciting. And a match basically of some undercard guys to give them some in-ring time and possibly try to find some interesting matchups. We had Makabe, Nago, and Yano defeat Saito, Tadeu Yasuda, and Ryoto Kichigan. Makabe gets the big pin over Saito with a Fisherman Buster in about 13 minutes. A decent win here for Makabe, as this match gets a 40. Solid, straightforward six-man tag, nothing too special, but solid win for Makabe here, as Ryoto gets a 37, Yasuda gets a 43, Saito gets a 37, Yano gets a 25, Nago gets 18, and Makabe gets a 46. And then in the Kanemoto return match, we had a bout that decent round for the crowd, but subpar wrestling. Liger and El Samurai defeats Kanemoto and Fujita in 12-12, when Liger pins Kanemoto with Shote. As is tradition in Japanese wrestling, the person coming back from injury loses their first match. This gets a 65, Samurai gets a 53, Liger gets a 79, Fujita, who's a young guy, gets a 23, Kanemoto gets a 56, Liger and Samurai have excellent chemistry, and yeah, fun stuff. And Kanemoto's new gimmick got it very good stuff. And post-match I know. And the post-match, Kanemoto and Fujita basically pushing each other, gets a 71 and a quick little, Liger goes for a handshake to come back, but Kanemoto pushes away and walks away to a mixed spot from the crowd. SS gets a 71 and sets up a little bit of an angle here. And then in our another match here, we had in a poor match, which gets a 53, Iizuka and Naruse, two undercard guys, defeat Tanahashi and Nishimura in a bit of an upset in 15 minutes, when Naruse gets the big pin over Nishimura with a quick cradle. As I mentioned, Nishimura going for one of his wacky Muga holds, and Naruse turns it into a cradle of his own, gets the quick pinfall victory, and a bit of an upset here, as this gets a 53, as Naruse gets a 47, Iizuka gets a 47, Naruse gets a 49, and Tanahashi gets a 55, mainly because they don't work as a team, which I'll note for the future. Again, not the end of the world or anything here, but a, decent little undercard match. And then as things kind of heat up here, we have the shooter team of Barnett, Fujita, and Suzuki defeat Nagata, Blue Wolf, and Yoshi, of the sort of New Japan guys team, as in a 14:36 when Fujita pins Blue Wolf with this. Well, okay, it's a sleeper hold, so I'll have to go and see if there's a better finisher for him. But this gets a 63, and the story of the match is basically Nagata is the guy here for the New Japan going against all of them, and there's two younger guys who sort of get ripped apart, but Nagata and Fujita fight and brawl basically back and forth through the whole match. But at the end, Blue Wolf's in the ring with Fujita, and Fujita just wrecks him, and Fujita gets the big win here. As this gets a 63, Yoshi gets a 30, Blue Wolf gets a 43, Nagata gets a 72, Suzuki gets a 65, Fujita gets a 58, and Barnett gets a 60. But post-match, Nagata and Fujita continue to feud, continue to fight, brawl all over the ring, and to the back to a 68. So fun stuff here and setting up a bit of a feud here. And then in our main event, and about the good heat and decent wrestling, the Pirates Gundam team of Nakanishi, Sasaki, and Norton defeat Nakamura, Takayama, and Tenzan, basically all the champions, in 21:40 when Nakanishi pins Nakamura with a rear cutter. So Nakanishi gets the big pin over the IWGP champion here in Korakuen Hall. Aziz gets a 69, Tenzan gets a 72, Takayama gets a 66, Nakamura gets a 63, Norton gets a 58, Sasaki gets a 65, and Nakanishi gets a 55. And at the end of the show, Nakanishi challenges Nakamura for the title. This gets a 55, and will be announced basically sooner than later that at the Fighting Spirit, that would be the main event, as Nakamura will make his second title defense against Manu Nakanishi. So there we go for the IWGP Heavyweight title. And overall, the show itself gets a 66. So solid little show here. Like, again, nothing too fancy, but just a good solid Korakuen Hall to start things off. Set up things as far as, like, some undercard feuds, building some people on the undercard, and moving forward with that stuff. So I'm just going to see if there's any interesting mail after this. And then I think that'll be it for our opening show here. I'll just have to double check here as it loads up. Okay, emo-wise, yeah, okay. Yep, nothing too, like, some of my undercard people got hired by K-Dojo, which is fine. Like, we're okay with them. They'll be above, I'm above them anyway. But yeah, there we go. So, that's the first show, and I'll be back in just a moment with the next show on the tour, which I believe is going to be the 4th or 5th show, which is from Sapporo. So we actually have some interesting matches on there since the only time we're up in that region of the country for a while. So I'll be back with that in just a moment. Alright, we're back with the 4th show in the tour, which is going to be from the Hokkaido Sports Center in beautiful Sapporo. Hokkaido, unfortunately, the attendance is going to blow because of the way the game does saturation, which isn't the best, but I understand what it does. And also I should have marked this as a non-tour show. Like, I should have marked this as a regular show since it's sort of like the big show in Hokkaido for the tour. And unfortunately, I forgot to do that, but not the end of the world or anything. Anyway, so just to go over like the tour shows, because I think that's the best thing to do is like book some of the tour shows off screen, but then go over them once the next up. So, in our first show, Hokkaido, we had 2 undercard matches, including Yasuda going over Nago. We had Tanahashi and Blue Wolf teaming up and having great chemistry, defeating Nagai and Naruse. And then we had Barnett, Murakami, and Aizuka from the Shooters defeating Takayama, Tenzan, and Yoshi to basically set up a tag title match on the Sapporo show. We had Tiger Mask winning a 10-man junior battle royal. And in the main event, Nakanishi, Norton, and Sasaki defeating Nagata, Makabe, and Yano. I believe Nakanishi pinned Yano in that. And then in the other tour show from Sapporo, we had the Young Lions go to a time limit draw. We had American Dragon Curryman defeat Tiger Mask 4 and Wataru Hanoi, which also sets up a match on this show. We had Shibata and Murakami defeat Yano and Saito. We had Tanahashi and Blue team again defeat Yoshi and Yasuda, who will basically be jobbers to the start on these shows. Like, they'll beat Young Lions and lose to the actual push people because it's Yoshi and Yasuda, not that good. We had Nagata, Tenzan, and Takayama defeat Barnett, Azuka, and Fujita to continue the newly created Nagata-Fujita feud, along with the little tag title undercard feud we're doing here in the best match of the night. We had Kanemoto team up with Gedo and Jado defeat Liger, El Samurai, and Taguchi. And the main event, Nakamura and Makabe teamed up to defeat Nakanishi and Norton in a 63. So solid match. And now we're off to the Sapporo show. So, again, only drawing 1,100 people, but, I'll deal with that. Anyway, on the pre-show match, we had Goto and Yano teaming up to defeat Nagao and Yamamoto. Yano basically pinned Nagao with a fast roll-up just a minute before the time limit. This gets a 21. Yano gets a 26. Goto gets a 30. Yamamoto gets a 25. Nagao gets a 24. Again, pre-show, these are the Young Lions, but the fans will eventually get used to them being over. And then, an actually shockingly good match. Bryan Danielson defeats Tiger Mask in 12:36 by pinfall the Dragon Suplex. But of course, it was set up by Danielson and Curryman getting the win on the last tour show. So a nice little undercard match, and Danielson gets the big win here over Tiger Mask and, sets himself up as a actual player in the junior division. I'm still a little undecided what I'm going to do with Danielson because it seems sort of because in real life he doubled down on ROH. So I might do a thing where he's not like where I make sure he's not like available to me like anytime where there's an R8 show coming up. I'll do something like that, like in real life, and see how well that actually affects his push or something like that. Anyway, regardless, Dion's gets a solid win here. And then we had Kanemoto team it with Nakamura to defeat Liger and El Samurai. When Kanemoto submitted El Samurai, this gets a 71. El Samurai gets a 56. Liger gets a 77. Nakamura gets a 43. Kanemoto gets a big win here and a 66. And sort of like, it's cocky heel shit to Liger after the match to continue their little feud since Kanemoto made his comeback. And then, in a defense of the under 30 openweight title, set up when Narusi won in that tag match on the show opener. Tanahashi defeats Narusi, though, in 12:55 by pinfall. I guess I have 5 flows and set up in here. As he makes defense number 2 as under 30 openweight title, this gets a 58, Tanahashi gets a 64, and Narusi gets a 40. And then, in another fun little undercard match, we had Fujinami come in to make an appearance, basically like bring probably some older fans on the show here, as he teams up with Nagata to take on Fujita and Suzuki. But in the match, Suzuki defeats Fujinami at 11:50 when Suzuki just like hits the gotch pile driver on Fujinami. This gets a 70, as these guys are all really good. Suzuki's 64, Fujita's 58, Fujinami's 47 because he's old, but what can you do? Nagata gets a 76. But then Nagata and Fuji continue to brawl to a 68, continuing to set up their little feud and, of course, their match coming up. And I think that will officially be announced after this show. It will be Nagata versus Kazushi Fida. And then in a matchup from the Tokyo Dome where Gedo got the win in the junior heavyweight tag title match, he defeats Gedo in 12-by-12 by submission to make defense number 1 of his IWGP junior heavyweight title. Straightforward, like sprint, junior heavyweight style sprint here, as he gets the win and makes defense number 1 of his title. This gives a 62. Both guys get 57. Perfectly solid win for Heat and moves them forward. And then in our semifinal match, and here's something I figured out. This mod is wrong. It has Tenzan and Takayama set up as the tag champs, which I always thought was weird, but I just assumed weird New Japan booking in the 2000s. It makes sense. Where all the champions were actually Tenzan and Nishimura. But I'm just going to play with this, like a little bit of change in history, whatever, not the end of the world. But regardless, in decent match, Tenzan and Takayama defeat Barnett and Azuka in 14-12, and Takayama pins Azuka with the Everest German suplex as they make defense number 1 of the tag titles. This gets a 70, Azuka gets a 52, Barnett gets a 60, Takayama gets a 64, and Tenzan gets a 71. Big win, and sort of like, gets a big win for the tag titles here. And what happens here, which I didn't set up, is after the match, no, because they're in the next match. So that'll happen as part of the tour show. Regardless, the tag title match for the end of the tour show will get set up during the tour, which I'll show you at that time. But anyway, this gets a 70, solid little match. And then in our main event, which probably drew the crowd, Nakanishi teams up with Tenryu as part of the Pirate Gunden to take on Nakamura and his partner Chono, who also comes in to bring the crowd in. As this is in a Kutei's wrestling, Nakamura gets a big win over Tenryu in 1949. This gets a 65. Nakanishi gets a 55. Tenryu gets a 47. Chono gets a 65, and Nakamura gets a 67. And the show overall gives us a 69. So solid stuff. Again, not the end of the world, like that didn't draw that well because it's a tour show, which I should have set as a non-tour show, but shit happens. What can you do? Regardless, moving on. Let's just see here if there's any interesting mail or injury news, and then I'll move you guys forward on to I think I'll show you guys one more tour show because there's one more decently sized tour show, which I'll do some like basically not TV taping style stuff, but like just some stuff here, and then it'll be the final show. I think that'll work out well. But I'll be back in just a moment with all that fun stuff, as the only mail we're looking at is Inoki's forging a link between Liger and Nagata. I mean, that would be what Nagata would do. Also, Suzuki got a sprained ankle, but it's nothing important. Anyway, I'll be back in just a second with the next tour show of importance on the show here. So I'll be back with that in just a second. All right, time for what is going to be, I think, the final tour show before the final Fighting Spirit Tour Under at Budokan. But just go over the last couple of days of shows. We had, let's see here, Tanahashi and Blue Wolf tune up again to defeat Goto and Nagato in a 51. With Liger, Young Lion Akaya, Tenzan, and Takayama teaming up to defeat Kanemoto, Nakamura, Naruse, and Nishimura in a 64. Samurai and L Dragon and Curryman all teamed up to defeat Inoue, Heat, and Tiger Mask in a 60. And then in the main event show, the shooters of Fujita, Shibata, and Murakami defeating Nagata, Makabe, and Yasuda. And then the next day in Yonezawa, we had Takamura defeat Nagio, Blue Wolf defeat Yamamoto, Yano and Nishimura teaming up to defeat Goto and Yasuda, Tanahashi and Akira teaming up with Bad Chemistry, defeating Yoshi and Chutsun. Then we had Liger, Dragon, and Kurima defeating Kanemoto, and Hito, and Jado in a 72. And we had Fujita and Murakami teaming up to defeat Nagata and Makabe in a 67. And then we had Nakanishi, Norton Sasaki actually defeating Barton, Azuka, and Shibata, which will set up a big match tonight. And then last night we had Nobushi defeating Yamamoto, Nakanishi and Norton teaming up to defeat Yoshi and Tsuda. Nakamura and Makabe then defeated Chutsun and Nagai, and then Shibata and Murakami defeated Tanahashi and Nagio in a 54. And then we had Kanemoto, Takamura, and Yano defeating Liger, El Samurai, and Akaya in a 58. And in the main event, Tenzan and Nagata teamed up to defeat Suzuki and Fujita in a 71. So that sets up this show, with the big matches being in a bit of a preview setup for the main event at the Fighting Spirit. We had Nakamura versus Yoshi and Nakanishi versus Chitsun, and basically singles matches versus undercard guys. We have Dragon and Curryman versus Heat and Inoue. We have, let's see here, in another setup of their Canadian feud, Kanemoto and Takamura taking on Liger and Akira. Then we have Team New Japan versus the Shooters. Then we have the main event, basically no contenders match for the tag titles. Norton Sasaki taking on Barnett and Suzuka, all from the Gifu Hall in beautiful Gifu, Japan. Let's go in with the actual show. So on our undercard match of basically undercard guys / young lions, Blue Wolf, Goto, and Nagio defeating Yamamoto, Yano, and Fujita in portion 06 when Blue Wolf submitted Toriano. This gets a 22. Only, again, pre-show stuff, but outside of that, Yamamoto got chronic lower back pain. That's unfortunate. And Nago got the botch. Okay, well, that's unfortunate. Then in our next match, to continue to set up this feud, we had Liger and Akaya defeating Kojei and Takayama in 10:52, and Liger pins Takayama with this sheer dot brainbuster. This gets a 60. Again, Kanemoto got a win over his young guy. Now Liger got a win over Kanemoto's young guy. As this Takayama got a 42, Kanemoto got a 51, and so got a 21, and Liger gets a 72. And then in the first hour little setup for the main event at Fighting Spirit, Nakanishi gets the big win over Chitsun and Tetsuya by submission with a 51. Nakanishi gets a 56, and Chitsun gets a 32. And then Dragon and Curryman gets the big win over Heat and Inoue in 13:02. And Curryman pins Inoue with the last rights, which I think is obviously named something different as Curryman, but I don't care. This gets a 60. Tiansen gets a 60, Curryman gets a 52, Inoue gets a 40, and Heat gets a 61. And then Tanahashi and El Samurai lose to Jado and Nishimura when Jado pins El Samurai with the backdrop suplex. This gets a 60. Honestly, this was just a way to get a couple guys on the show. They're sort of connected, but not really. Samurai gets a 51, Tanahashi gets 62, Nishimura gets a 50, and Jado gets a 58. And then in the other preview match, Nakamura defeats Yoshi in 9:23 by pinfall, as this gets a 58, Nakamura gets a 67, and Yoshi gets a 33. Afterwards, that's next to our New Japan vs. Shooters match, as Nagata teams up with the tag champs Takayama and Tenzan to defeat Fujita, Shibata, and Murakami when Nagata pins Murakami with a reverse clutch exploder. This gets a 68. Tenzan gets a 72, Takayama gets a 65, Nagata gets a 73, Murakami gets a 46, Shibata gets a 42, and Fujita gets a 56. And then we had Fujita and Nagata brawl again to a 71. And then in our main event, we had Norton and Sasaki defeat Barnett and Azuka in 1946 when Sasaki pins Barnett with a Northern Lights bomb. Wait. I did not realize they have no chemistry as partners. I could have sworn I teamed them up before. Oh well, okay, guess I haven't. Guess I know now. Anyway, Sasaki gets a 52, Norton gets a 48, Azuka gets a 49, and Barnett gets a 56. That's unfortunate, and that probably tells a tale of what's going to actually be the result tomorrow. Anyway. And then the show itself gets a 62. And then I'm going to show you guys what basically the card for the Fighting Spirit Tour final card is, just because everything is basically set up. It's just going to be a case of what goes from there. But as this loads up, loading. Alright, so any news? Yeah, Nanamoto. Okay, let me see how long he'll be actually out, because okay, so Noguchi's out for another day, so he'll be back. But then, okay, so he just has about a month off. Well, not a month off, but a month of lower power. Okay, well, guess what? You're a young lion. You get to deal with it. But for our actual pre-booking, we have so we have Nagata versus Fujita. We have Nakamura versus Nakanishi for the IWGP title. We have Norton Sasaki versus Tenzan and Takayama for the tag titles. We have Liger versus Kanemoto. And in a triple threat match, we have Gato and Jado versus Dragon and Curryman versus Heat and Takamaster for the junior heavyweight tag titles. So that's a show. Obviously, there'll be undercard stuff, but nothing too over the top. But that'll basically set things up for that card. So that's that. So I'll be back in just a moment with the actual Fighting Spirit Tour enter. All right, it's now time for the Fighting Spirit Tour, and I'll go over the lineup here in just a moment. But first, I'm going to go over the show history. So let's see. Last thing you guys saw was Gifu. So after that, we had Jado defeating Curryman, Nakamura and Makabe defeating Yoshi and Yasuda, Liger defeating Nakamura, Koji's young boy, Nakanishi Norton defeating Shiitsun and Nagai in 59. In the main event, Suzuki, Fujita, Shibata, and Murakami defeating Nagata, Tanahashi, Blue Wolf, and Nishimura 67. And then we had, let's see here, Takemura, Jado, and Heat defeating Liger, Elsamar, and Brian Danielson at 65. We had Yoshi, Nagio, Goto, and Tanahashi defeating Naruse, Nagai, Nishimura, and Ryoto in an undercard special. Tiger Mask 4 defeating Gedo. And continuing to heat up the undercard tag match, Azuka, Shibata, and Murakami of the Shooters then defeated Blue Wolf, Takayama, and Tenzan. Sort of continue to build that up. We had Barnett and Fujita, then teaming up to defeat Nagata and Makabe, and the main event to draw a crowd in Osaka, Chono and Nakamura defeated Sasaki and Nakanishi in a 71. And then we had Kanemoto defeating Liger's young boy Akaya, and then Liger saving Akaya at Koji for beatdown. Then we had Fujita, Shibata, and Murakami of the Shooters defeating Nishimura, Yoshi, and Naruse. Danielson defeated Jado in the triple threat sort of preview, but Nagata, Tanahashi, and Blue Wolf defeating Shitsun, Yaga, and Yasuda. We had Nakamura and Liger teaming up to defeat Burnett and Inoue. And in the main event, Nakanishi, Norton, and Sasaki defeated Tenzan, Takayama, and Sato. And then we had the show, which was day 12. This was a show that I thought was set up as a tour show, but was set up as a regular show. And I didn't realize it till the show started, so I had to book a bunch of decent regular matches on the show. I'm not going to show you guys since it's basically out of continuity. Then we have our lineup for tonight. We have the beginning with a Young Lion throwdown of Akiya, Taguchi, and Yamamoto versus Yano, Takamura, and Fujita. We have Team New Japan versus Team Shooter. Well, first we have hold on, let me actually set this up. So move this down. Okay. Good. Then well, actually, I'll just go over the show because that's easier. Because then everything else sort of defaulted. So we have some undercard matches, but we'll go over as the goes through, and we're live from Budokan. So the show starts out with our undercard, our show opening young boy tag as Yano, Takamura, and Fujita defeat Akaya, Taguchi, and Yamamoto in 9:41 when Takamura pins Akaya. So just Kanemoto's young boy gets a big win over Liger's young boy as it gets a 28, Yamamoto gets a 20, Taguchi gets a 33, Enzo gets a 23, Fujita gets a 41, Takamura gets a 44, Yano gets a 23. So decent little match. And after that, in an undercard tag match, Barnett and Azuka get a win over Yasuda and Yoshi in 10-1, just a way to get Azuka and Barnett over. As gets a 55, Yasuda gets a 62, Barnett gets a 64, Yoshi gets a 34, and Yasuda gets a 42. And then in a sort of Legends tag match to get these guys on the card, Chono, Saito, Choshu, and Fujinami defeat Nago, Goto, Shitsun, and Naruse in 12:23 when Chono pinned Goto with a Yusuke kick. This gets a 56, Fujimani gets a 44, Choshu gets a 44, Saito gets a 42, Chono gets a 75, Naruse gets a 47, Richie gets a 39, Goto gets a 30, and Nago gets a 22. So just sort of a showcase for Chono here, as I didn't have anything for him to do, and he's sort of he's not quite in pure occasional wrestler mode, but he didn't really have an angle for him during this first tour, so there we go. But after the match, the Legends are celebrating when Tenryu comes out and confronts Chono and basically, says that in a little bit, my guys are going to take tag belts off of your former tag partner and his new tag partner, and we'll just prove that Pirates Quinton are number one. Chono fires back, we'll just have to see about that, and that's about it. As it gets 65, it looks like we have a little battle between two legends, between Chono and Tenryu. Then, in an undercard match, we have Shibata, Murakami, and Suzuki defeating Tanahashi, Blue Wolf, and Shinya Makabe in 14:06. So Makabe's been, And so then, but Suki gets the big one on Tanahashi, hitting the gotch pile driver on the under 30 heavyweight champion. This gets a 58. Makabe gets a 49. Blue Wolf gets a 44. Tanahashi gets a 64. Suzuki gets a 70. Murakami gets a 51. And Shibata gets a 47. So a big win for the shooters here as they get a pin over the under 30 heavyweight champion. And Tanahashi takes the loss. And maybe that sets up for something between Suzuki and Tanahashi. We'll just have to see. And then in our triple threat tag match for the tag titles, junior heavyweight tag titles, Gedo and Jiro defeat Dragon and Curryman and Heat and Tiger Mask. When Gedo gets the big pin over Tiger Mask 4, so the Super Fly Splash, but I'm sure it was some goofy cheating tactic, back and forth, high flying match. But Gedo and Jiro retain the tag titles, make defense. I think that was actually defense number 2 of their junior heavyweight tag titles. This gets 75, like I said, overall. Jiro gets a 59, Gedo gets a 64, Rayman gets a 67, Dionson gets a 72, Tiger Mask 4 gets a 62, and Heat gets a 64. So a solid little match as Gedo and Jiro for the tag titles, and, you know, but on the other hand, neither Dragon or Crewman actually got pinned, so there we go for that. But Tiger Mask 4 did get pinned, so yeah. However, the Junior Heavyweight Championship did not get pinned, so help to get another challenger, possibly. Or we'll just have to see about that. And then, Nagata, in sort of the feud that's been boiling over this whole entire tour, in a just, like, this is just two men beating the crap out of each other for 10 minutes, like, just punches, kicks, stiff punches, stiff forearms, attempted takedowns, reversals, throws to the outside, brawling outside, back inside, and just all action for pure 10 minutes. But eventually, Nagata hits a couple big lariats and is able to get the big pinfall victory over Fujita in 10 minutes by pinfall. As Nagata gets a 78, Fujita gets a 56. But of course, Fujita is not happy after that and actually goes to attack, like he spears Nagata and he's about to lock him in a hold. When of all people, Bob Sapp comes down to make the save. Bob Sapp tears Fujita off of him, hits the sort of Sap bomb on Fujita to pop from the crowd. Nagata's a little wary of him, but he then nods at Sapp and rolls to the outside. So Bob Sapp is here, back in New Japan after being gone since the Tokyo Dome, and seems like he's focused on a guy he may face MMA, Fujita, as this gets a 67. Fun stuff, and sort of set something up for Sapp in the future for the next big show. And then, in about the great heat and good wrestling, Jushin Liger gets the big win over Kanemoto in 1440 with a shooter up Brain Buster. This gets a 78. Go back and watch any great Liger Kanemoto match from this time period. That's what happened here. So Liger gets the big victory here as Kanemoto, he's back from injury, but he's maybe not quite 100%. But he had to accept he got the loss here as Liger takes the win here in the Budokan. Post-match, Liger goes for a handshake, but Kano slaps it away and walks away because he's still a quick heel and still happy about losing to Liger, as this gets a 69. Fun stuff. I think it's time for the semi-main after this, possibly. Yeah, okay. So, in about that good heat and decent wrestling, Tenzan and Takayama defeat Norton and Sasaki in 1438 when Tenzan gets the huge victory, pinning Sasaki with the Tenzan Tombstone Driver, as Tenzan and Takayama make defense number 2 other tag titles, as this gets a 72. Back and forth little match, old school style New Japan power match, something you don't really see in New Japan in real life anymore, just holds, power moves, and that's about it. But Tenzan gets the big one here as this sort of thrown together team, because it was wrongly set down in the mod, retain the tag titles as Norton Sasaki take the loss. And I saw this during the tours, but unfortunately I just have to deal with it as Norton Sasaki have no chemistry as tag partners. And actually a couple members of Pirates again don't have any what's the word I'm looking for? Any chemistry. There's the one good chemistry I think of Nakanishi and Norton or Sasaki, and that's about it. Regardless, Sasaki gets a 60, Norton gets a 51, Takayama gets a 67, Tenzan gets a 70, but overall the match gets a 72. And then, in our main event, Shinya Nakamura retains the IWGP title, beating Manu Nakanishi in 20 minutes by pinfall, and just a solid, clear win here. Back and forth match goes 20 minutes. They beat, this is two guys just beating the crap out of each other. Nothing fancy, no super moves, just two guys beating the crap out of each other, old school New Japan style. But eventually, Nakamura is just a little bit better, is able to hit the penalty kick, and get the clean pinfall victory here at Budokan. As this gets 72, as they have the correct chemistry. Nakamura gets a 72, Nakanishi gets a 56, And then as Nakanishi as Nakamura, Nakanishi rolls outside, Nakanishi celebrates, and out comes Yuji Nagata to challenge Nakamura for the title. As of course, Nagata did get the big win earlier tonight and now wants his IWGP title back. And overall, the show gets us in 76. So good stuff. I'm going to give this to Nagata, Koji, despite losing. And what was the other shockingly good match? Actually, yeah, I'll give it to Takayama. There we go. So I think that was a solid, first show, first big show after the Tokyo Dome. We kept, we continued the Nakamura push because in real life he got injured. Did get injured here. We're keeping the shooter guys, but not over pushing them because they are over enough and decent enough that we're not going to totally job them to death, but we're not going to super push them like happened in real life. So yeah, let me just see here. Yeah, I mean, obviously you guys need some time to heal. We got 440,000 buys, fun stuff. And oh yeah, just Inoki's building a clique because why? Why not? Because of course Inoki would. So just to check out some overness for some folks, let's see here. Let's go to our major stars. Do we have any yet? No, still. Okay. And that's still a problem, stars-wise. Okay, so Liger's down a point, but that's to be expected. Norton's actually down 2 points, but again, not the end of the world. And Nagata is actually still also down a point, which again, all stuff I was expecting because I actually had them take some losses and stuff. For our well-known guys, let's see here. Bob Sapp. Sapp is up to a 70. Tanahashi is, let's see here, up to a... Okay, so he's down a point still, but, at the end of the world. Fujita is still at 75. And again, that's the reason why he's probably hanging around for a bit. He only has 2 months, but I'm probably going to extend him for another year just to have him around to be around. He's over. Sasaki again, down a couple points. Nakanishi, though. Up a couple points. Suzuki is even, and honestly, he's probably more over than he should be, but what can you do? But there we go. Here's a big one. Nakamura's actually, he's about the same, give or take. And then Takayama is down a couple points. So basically, as we're sort of dealing with the fact we don't have enough people over, if we look at our creative, we have no franchise players, we have some next big things. And who's hot is Nakanishi, Tanahashi, Nakamura, Suzuki, and Liger. Sort of people we've pushed help well this tour. And not so well is Tenru, Choshu, Tenzan, Takayama, Tenzaki. Also, I have to pay off Shono and Tenru because I jobbed them on the show you guys didn't see, just because, again, I need some over people. But yeah, not the end of the world. We're still building things up. And, our next big show is going to be, what is it called? Let me pull it up. Yeah, next big show is basically King of Sports at the end of March, and then there'll be the Hyper Battle Tour before that. So that'll be the next thing you guys see, at least with this series. Of course, then after this is I'll have the Starcade review up on Friday, and then Starcade 2004 will be up on Monday, and then we'll go through end of the year stuff with that stuff. But that's it for now. If you enjoyed this, go to give it a like, comment below on what you're enjoying and not enjoying, and subscribe to our channel for lots of TEW20 content like I just went over. And, that's it. So talk to you later, and adios. Have a good one.